Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to speak about this wonderful man.
You are most welcome. Before we begin the proceedings, I'd like to read a tweet. It's a tweet by a young lady who is, she's a poet. She goes by the name ANCYL at Icherekrend. And she says, PAC did the action and ANC took all the glory. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because last week at the Dr. Andrew Mlangeni Golf Day, we actually had a similar conversation with Dr. Andrew Mlangeni, who was, of course, Udada is a fellow Rivonia trialist, Robben Island prisoner. He was with him in the trenches. And Dr. Mlangeni said to me, the thing about Madiba is that he was a nation builder.
Yes.
He had unity in mind at all times. That actually in Robben Island, or on Robben Island, when a number of ANC prisoners said, we need to shun those of the PAC, we need to wipe them out or erase their history of the PAC and sideline them, it was Udada and as well as a few other comrades who said, no, they fought alongside us, we incorporate them, we include them. He was a nation builder.
Absolutely. You know, after his release in 1990, between the period of May 1990 and way into 1993, Madiba visited and spoke to every leader of every political formation in the country. And even though there were some people that many of his ANC comrades and myself included said, how can you speak to that person? His view was that we have to build a nation. And there needs to be a foundation of that nation. And the foundation of any nation is acceptance that people will have different views, that people will not always agree with your own viewpoint, but the best you can do and start to do is to put your viewpoint to them, and you might even persuade them to understand where you are, and they might have issues of value to give and teach to you. So I'm just illustrating that he never ever agreed with the notion that anyone should be isolated, that any particular viewpoint should be isolated. His view was inclusivity at all times. And if you think back to the manner in which he dealt with the Springbok emblem, for example, I mean, I grew up in a period where the Springbok was an emblem of racism, an emblem of hatred of black people and white supremacy. And yet, when Madiba came out of prison and had discussions with people in the sporting fraternity, he understood that the country needed one symbol that would unite us in terms of sport. And why look for a new symbol when the Springbok had done no harm to anybody, this poor animal had done no harm to anybody, but had been accorded this awful reality because of the exclusion of other people. So turn it around and take the same symbol as a symbol of inclusivity. And Madiba's vision was, and I believe that this is where we have to go now, a year after his death. We need to step out of our mourning clothes. We need to stretch our hands out very wide and embrace everybody and begin to build this nation that is so vibrant, so dynamic, so diverse. That's our strength. And he understood that strength so well. You know, the concept of a non-racial South Africa is not a new one, and it certainly wasn't Madiba's original idea, and it is the ANC's idea. But Madiba carried that to the letter, believing that every South African, irrespective of race, color, or creed, had some value to bring. What people needed to understand in his view was that democracy does deliver a majority perspective. And there is plurality in our country. We have diverse views. But those diverse views don't need us to hate each other. We must debate them. You know, for me, I wrote an article today in the New Age, and that's what it's about. It's all about his nation build, him as a nation builder. And what I'd like to say is that, you know, unless we step up out of our doors, as South Africans and know who lives in the neighborhood, in our street, next door to us. And we try to understand each other a lot better than we do. We drop some of our innate, some things we were, not all of us were born with racism. We were taught how to be racist. People are not born to hate. You get taught how to hate. But you can also be taught how to love each other. So it's more nuanced than that. I do believe that. It's much more nuanced than that. But at the end, Madiba's view was differences of opinion is necessary. It deepens our democracy. It strengthens it. What we should avoid is violent confrontation because of our differences. And, you know, he went to KwaZulu-Natal at the height of the violence and told people, throw your weapons into the sea. I remember being very angry with him and saying, you know, people have died there. People were killed. And you say to people, throw your weapons into the sea. He says, no. But how do you stop violence unless you stop it? How do you stop people hating each other for no other reason than a political difference unless you say, please, let's stop now and let's talk? And look, him and the leadership at his time, including Comrade Zuma, our current president, Comrade Mbeki, Steve Tshwete, Joe Modise and others, were very, very brave because they came back into a country where people were angry. I was an angry young woman, I must tell you. And they changed us. They said to us, take this country forward. You cannot survive on anger and hatred and accept that people have different views. Open yourself up to those views, but never forgo principle. And I must tell you, Madiba never did. He was open to new views. He listened, and sometimes he even brought those views back to the NEC of the ANC, but he always put the objective principles of the ANC first, and that's 5 tasks we have. Building a non-racial society, a democratic society, a non-sexist one, a united one, and a prosperous society. So, you know, that's the NDR, the National Democratic Revolution.
And of course,
it has to go on.
Madiba being a true product of the ANC. We'll have to leave it there. You and I have unfortunately run out of time. There's a number of things that we wanted to speak about. Very unpopular decisions that Duarte took in order to make sure that there's reconciliation. The STEM and its inclusion into Nkosi Sikelela's the national anthem. Another very unpopular move, but he had to take that in a bit to make sure that we don't break out into civil war in South Africa, but that we include all different races, all sexual orientation, any creed that you know of, in order to have this rainbow nation that we speak of today. Well,